Hello, and thanks for tuning in. Today we're talking about new things. Let's dive in.
Yeah.
It's really quite something how differently we all react when something unfamiliar, well, pops up. And the material we looked at, it really seems to zero in on this, especially the gap between younger and older folks. So today we're going to try and unpack why those reactions might be so different.
Yeah, it's striking, isn't it? Right from the get-go, the sources show this. This divergence in initial reactions.
Divergence, how so exactly?
Well, there's a pretty clear trend suggesting younger people often show, more immediate enthusiasm. They seem quicker to pick things up.
Okay, enthusiasm.
Whereas older individuals, they tend to be a bit more reserved, maybe even hesitant sometimes.
Like with a new smartphone or something?
Exactly. Think about a new gadget. That whole learning curve seems, well, it's just approached really differently depending on age, it seems.
Right. Okay, so let's dig into that youthful side first.
Yeah.
What's driving that openness? The sources mention a few things.
Yeah, a couple of really interesting angles.
One seems to be just the world they grew up in.
That's a big one. I mean, it's a world that's been changing constantly, right? Especially with technology.
Nonstop.
So that's likely bred a kind of inherent adaptability. It's almost like they expect things to keep shifting.
It's the baseline normal for them.
Pretty much. And, neurologically, this constant exposure to novelty from a young age, it might actually shape the brain to be more receptive, less resistant.
Huh. So it's physically easier, maybe?
The sources sort of hint at that, yeah. That flexibility seems pretty significant.
Okay, so it's not just being used to change. The material also talks about mindset, doesn't it?
Absolutely. A difference in, attitude. Younger people often seem to have this greater open-mindedness, just sheer curiosity.
Because they're still exploring, figuring things out.
Exactly. They're shaping their identities, looking at future possibilities. So new experiences, they just fit better with that life stage, feel more appealing.
Mm-hmm. And that ties into risk, too, I suppose.
It does. This exploration phase often comes with, let's say, a lower perceived risk with new stuff.
Fewer responsibilities, maybe.
That's what the sources suggest, yeah. Fewer established routines, maybe less financial pressure sometimes. It can mean less fear if something new disrupts things or, doesn't work out.
The stakes just feel a bit lower.
Kind of, yeah. Less to potentially lose.
And we see this playing out, right? The sources give examples. Technology is the obvious one.
Oh, definitely. Like how quickly younger generations are grabbing onto new AI tools is pretty amazing.
They just dive in.
They dive in, they experiment, they figure out how to use it almost instinctively. It gets woven into their lives fast.
And there's less worry about, breaking it or understanding every single detail first.
Seems that way. More hands-on trial and error, which, might contrast a bit with a more cautious, let's read the manual first approach, maybe seen sometimes in older groups.
Right. Read the manual, do the research.
Potentially, yeah. It's a different style of engagement, perhaps.
And it's not only tech, is it? The sources also mention bigger life changes.
Yeah. Things like being more willing to switch careers or just pack up and travel somewhere totally new on short notice.
The spontaneous stuff.
It really shows that adventurous spirit, that readiness to just embrace uncertainty.
Okay, so these examples, they paint a picture of a broader pattern then.
I think so, yeah. This leaning towards novelty, it seems to ripple through different parts of life for many younger people, driven by that mix of their environment, their mindset, and just their current life circumstances.
So maybe for everyone listening, take a second to think, when have you really jumped into something new, been excited? And when have you maybe felt that urge to stick with the familiar, the comfortable?
Good question.
Did you feel more like that younger profile or the older one in those moments? It can change depending on the situation, right?
Oh, definitely. That kind of self-reflection is really useful for understanding these dynamics, not just out there, but in ourselves too.
Okay, so wrapping things up a bit, our deep dive into the sources today suggests that younger people often show this real enthusiasm for new things.
Yeah, driven by adaptability from growing up in a fast-changing world.
Right, and that open-mindedness, maybe fewer fixed responsibilities and just less fear of messing up.
While on the other hand, older individuals might find more comfort or efficiency in familiar routines and processes.
Which makes sense, too. Stability has its own value.
Absolutely. So considering these different tendencies, it kind of leads to a bigger question, doesn't it?
Which is?
Well, how can understanding these varied reactions to new things, how can that help us all connect better and, work together across generations, especially when the world just keeps changing?
That's a really good thought to leave people with. How do we bridge that? That's a wrap for today. Remember, you're capable of great things. Stay curious and stay motivated.